You're listening to one of the most powerful shows on radio. Welcome. This is the Urban Survivalist Show. Hello, East Texas. My name is Shane Richardson, and I am honored to be your host for the next half hour. Today's show is going to fly by, and I'm going to do my best to fit it in 30 minutes. I'd like to give a shout-out to all the tellers that I talked to this morning over at Texas Bank and Trust, who I know are listening into the show. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all those people that have joined me on YouTube and subscribed to our account there and on Twitter, and who sent me emails. Please keep them coming to Shane at theurbansurvivalistshow.com. We really appreciate you guys. Now, today I'm going to have to jump right into it. And one of the things we want to discuss was where to get good information out there, or good news that's not so much skewed by, I think, corporate influences. When we watch MSNBC and CNN and Fox, sometimes we don't really get the whole truth. It seems like we're only getting the truth of what their corporate sponsors want us to hear. So I have done my part to go out and find some of the new, edgy news reporters, so to speak, that are out there in our nation. The first guy we have on our show is a guy who inspired me to even call my show the Urban Survivalist Show. His name is George Furtado, and I will waste no time jumping into the show today. So, in fact, I'm going to bring him on now, and then I will explain why he's here and what it is that George does as we get into this interview. So, we will waste no time. Let's jump right on. You have a site on YouTube called Inflation US. Am I saying that right, George?
Yeah, that's perfect.
What's your last name, by the way? I keep calling you George, and I never asked for your...
No problem. It's Heminger, but whenever I'm on the web, I use George for title,
right?
George for inflation.us.
Now, what did you do before you started posting up? And you may still do it now, but before you started really posting a lot of stuff up on YouTube, what did you do before that?
No, I was in corporate title insurance sales and real estate development for 10 years.
Wow.
So, I ran an office with, 40, 50 people and 15 sales reps underneath me. I've opened escrow offices all over Southern California. Right. And I'm no longer doing that because we've had the collapse in the real estate bubble.
Just to let the people know who are listening to the show and they haven't seen the videos, please go online to YouTube and check out Inflation US, or just type in George Furtado. You'll find him. And you traveled the nation. That's what's inspiring. I remember you went to Detroit, and you used the phrase there, urban survivalist. In fact, the reason I named this show, the Urban Survivalist Show, is because of this guy that I have on the phone right now, George Furtado. I'm just going to call you that because that's the way I know you, is George Furtado.
That's fine.
Good. And I hear him talking about that. And to me, that was the first person that had used that phrase. And I thought, that describes this new skill set that I have had to go through whenever I lost my company and I had to try to figure out how I'm going to stay in my house and keep my cars from being repoed and put food on the table. That was the new urban survivalist. I didn't have a farm in the backyard. And so here's this guy saying it for the first time. And you would travel the nation. You go to Detroit, you go to California, you go all these different places and show us pictures of what's actually taking place. And the mainstream media was not covering it. So here you are, this Lone Ranger, so to speak, traveling the nation, and I'm wondering, who pays for this?
I've been to Mexico City to cover the swine flu for 2 weeks.
Right.
I've been up to the Northwest. I've been all over the country. I also did a show on urban survivalism in San Bernardino, California, that Fox News picked up and did a story on locally here in LA.
Oh wow!
And the key is, who pays for it is a little bit of everybody. Once you get, YouTube is a great vehicle to get yourself out there.
Right.
And if you get a fan base, just different things happen. Like when I went to Mexico to cover swine flu, that was a website called Godlike Productions. They offered to pay my way if I did some reporting for them.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's real interesting. A lot of times it's just individual people contacting me. In Detroit, it was actually a CEO of a real estate development company. He contacted me and said, George, I'd love you to do some Detroit videos. I'll pay for everything if you come out here and do it. Right. And I said, hey, no problem. I'll do it.
Wow. Would you agree with me, George, that there seems to be, I don't know whether you should call it a movement, because I hate to call it that, and stereotype it, but I don't know what else to say. There seems to be an energy or a movement or some kind of shift that is taking place out there, that people realize that the mainstream media is not giving them the true, the honesty. And they're recognizing people like you and I, and especially you, because you've been doing it for longer than I have. I'm just humbled to put myself in your category. But people that are finally saying, you know what, man, I'm going to do something about it. If no one else will cover it, I'll step up to the plate and just do it myself. And I think more people are starting to feel that energy and support those causes. Would you agree with me?
I totally agree with you. The truth is out there.
Yeah.
It's just not being promoted on the mainstream media. The mainstream media has an agenda, and that agenda lines up with the corporations that support it. They're not going to go against those corporations.
Right.
The Internet is a low-cost media, as is radio, and we can talk about different subjects because we're not financially intertwined with the corporations that are, will benefit from the message.
No, you're exactly right. Situation out there is worse than what the mainstream media says, and me and you both know it is. I mean, if you look at Oregon at 23% unemployment on the broad measure, if you look at the broad measure, and even Michigan, if you look at that same broad measure of unemployment, it's around 22%. Those are Great Depression numbers. You know what I'm saying? And so things are really kind of bad out there. And if they are going to be coming here to this East Texas way, because, we have some unemployment, but you and I talked last night, and really East Texas is majorly unaffected when it comes to the rest of the country because you've been there.
I've been there, and I can tell you right now the mainstream media is really hurting. I've had, working with Fox News,
right.
I know for sure that executive producers there and people are being laid off because of the economic situation.
Right.
They don't realize how the Internet and radio are taking away viewership from cable and local affiliate news stations.
Right.
There's a whole transformation that's happening, and you're right smack dab in the middle of it.
I know. Because we talked about this before we went on air, but to brag a little bit, I uploaded my YouTube videos on Sunday of last week, and by last night I was the 40th most subscribed reporter news channel kind of deal in the U.S. in just 4 or 5 days. And I went, what? I even did a radio show this morning in the UK. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm just a guy out here in East Texas who's on his 5th or 6th show. I started the second week of June, and now I'm doing a radio show in UK.
It's very exciting, and I can tell you right now, 8 months ago, I threw out my television. I threw out my cable.
Wow.
And I'll tell you the reason why. I would watch the news, and it wouldn't jive with what I was doing my own research with, and I'd literally feel like throwing a brick through my a couple times I felt like throwing my television out the window. So you know what I did? I called the cable company, and I said, you know what, turn this off. Yeah. And I just took every TV except for a flat screen panel that I watch videos with my kids. I don't even watch TV. Everything you want on TV can be gotten on the Internet anyways. Right. In fact, there's a whole revolution happening right now with people watching Netflix, and they're hooking up their computers to their flat-screen TVs. I mean, it's going the way of the Internet. It's the television and Internet are going to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing. As these people transfer over, they're going to find you, George, because I'm telling you, you're right smack dab in the middle of it. And people that have been following this alternative news source on YouTube for a while have been following people like you. So it's kind of an honor to have you on the show. And one of the things that that impressed me, and the reason that I wanted to have you on the show today, is because we're kind of talking. I have a new sponsor for the show by a gentleman by the name of Tommy Bennington, who owns a company here locally, George, called Texican Gold and Silver. I'm going to have him on the show right after you. And the reason I wanted to have him on the show, and obviously I'm honored to have him as a sponsor, and we'll talk more about that later, but you had a video where you went to California, I believe it was, and you were the first to upload a video that says, I'm going to go into this grocery store, and to show you that times are changing and that the dollar could be on the edge, there are people that are taking gold and silver for groceries. And you go grocery shopping, you go to the back of this grocery store, and there's a little window, and you pay, and you go out to your car, and you got the whole video the whole time, and you get all these dimes, I guess from 1964 and newer.